This is Radiant Voices Media.
Welcome to the Paths We Take podcast. I'm your host, Jordan Disanjh. Let's hit a path. Hey there, and welcome back to the Paths We Take. Today's episode is for anyone who feels like they're doing all the right things with their mindset, their health, and their way of life, but still feels tired, overwhelmed, or stuck in a cycle of starting again. I'm joined today by Luke, a coach who looks at health through a much bigger lens than just training and food. Luke's work is all about reclaiming your energy. It's about regulating your nervous system and creating results without restriction or burnout. He blends movement, nutrition, breath work, and mindset in a way that actually supports real life, not just short-term transformations. In this episode, we go deeper than just the aesthetics and surface level habits. We talk about what energy really means, why so many people feel disconnected from their bodies, and how stress in the nervous system impacts your health, how sustainable change is built from the inside out. This episode is for anybody listening who wants a more grounded, realistic, and empowering approach to their health and their lifestyle. Without further ado, let's get into the paths we take. And if you are listening today on Apple Podcast or Spotify, if you can please head to the podcast page, hit that 5-star review button. It really helps the podcast and it really just helps out the show in general. All right, let's talk about supplements that actually earn a spot in my routine. Not hype, just results. I love the Tropica matcha because I love clean energy without the crash. But also I like how this matcha is smooth, it's not bitter, and I genuinely look forward to having it every day. There's also the pineapple creatine. Creatine isn't just for muscle performance, you guys. There is more research coming out about how it supports mental clarity, mood, etc., etc. If you train, think, move, breathe, you should be taking creatine, in my opinion. At nighttime, I also love their beauty custard. It legit tastes like dessert and supports recovery while I sleep. It is collagen, so it's great for the skin, the hair, joints, longevity. Both men and women, everybody should be taking collagen. You guys can use my code JORDSDAY10 at checkout to save yourself some money. That's JORDZDAY10 at checkout. JORDSDAY10. Thank you, everybody. Well, thank you, Luke, for taking the time to come on the Paths We Take and coming on the podcast.
Thank you.
Now, Luke, one question that I like to start on the podcast, I ask this to everybody, is if the person listening right now had an autobiography in front of them, this was autobiography on you, of course, what is a thing or things that they would find in that autobiography, and just give us your path, I guess, in your journey, basically.
The other day, I Googled my name.
Okay.
Right. Cringe. But I'm looking to start, I'm going somewhere with this. I'm looking to start a new website. My mate said Google lukekoek.com.au and wasn't available. Okay. But when I Googled my name, everything fitness comes up. Right. Everything fitness. Abs, nutrition, ebooks, six packs, competitions. That's been the big boom, has been the last 16 years is all fitness stuff. So born and bred personal trainer for 15 years, as we just said before, like the dinosaur of the fitness industry. And I guess transformed into a breathwork practitioner. Okay. That's the shortest version. But if you look, there is just fitness plastered everywhere. So it's been that big death and rebirth, identity deaths, to be able to transform into this very well known, did great in the fitness industry, into online transformation coach, now evolved or ascended into nervous system coach.
Where did that journey start? So you becoming a fitness coach 15 years ago was quite some time ago. And, you know, I think It's very interesting speaking to somebody like you in that field because like we were saying before as well, people don't really stay in that industry very long. You know, you're
Yeah.
either in it for 15 years or you're in it for a year
Yeah.
or whatnot. I was one of those people when I was 19, got my PT cert.
Everyone's got one.
Yeah,
Everyone's got one.
exactly. Was in it for
Yeah.
like a year or two and then nah, I'm out of here. I'm doing something different. So what brought you into it and where was that path back then?
I don't know, because before that I was, and this sounds crazy, but I was a chef, like at school. Like I studied to become a chef. I was like, I'm becoming a chef. I did all my prac and went to TAFE and did all that, and I was in the journey. And then at some point, I just sort of deferred and did a little bit of fitness, a little bit of cooking. And a mate was like, "You'd be sick at this because you love your fitness." And then I don't know, man. I literally a blink of an eye. It was like 10 years. I just had the urge that gym was my thing and helping people. Like I say to my daughter all the time, my thing has always been like, how do you make money? Helping people. And I just was like a little bit of a psychopath. Like I used to work all day, every day, 6, 7 days a week as a PT and just built this empire. And I said to myself, I'm going to be the best personal trainer in the northern suburbs. And I went from like next generation in the city. I worked for EMF. Is that the word? That's one of that. It's old school. I think they're gone now. Good life. I did everything and then kind of landed myself at a home base of Anytime Fitness. And I just crushed. I just don't remember. It just feels like all of a sudden it was like 10 years.
What did you learn about yourself? Because I think it's the PT industry is quite interesting as well because you are running your own business, right? Like you're helping other people. And that's not something that a lot of people also are trained in as well. You kind of are, for most people, learning along the way and, you
Yep.
know, just taking punches as they roll, basically.
Literally.
What are some things that have come up or when you were going through that path? How did you learn about business? How did you kind of learn about yourself throughout that journey?
Yeah, fail forward. Yeah. And that's a big one. I know Good Life did a little bit of mentoring and coaching, but when you land yourself in a gym where you're like the only personal trainer, which was like a key element to my success, I was like the only person, but I had no fucking idea. No idea. I was just like, start the session, finish the session, crushed it, made sure they felt energized, happy, embodied, and they learned and got educated whilst they were there. But I had no idea, absolutely no idea. And I guess I didn't really look at the business aspect of it for so long. It was like the full Richard Branson spec. It was just like, no idea what I'm doing. Say yes, get it done, and work the rest out later. And that's what I did. And then I guess that was the evolution of where I was able to go online because I had built the reputation as the fitness guy. And then it created trust, right? But other than that, I had no fucking idea.
When did you go online? How long ago was that?
Oh, I was like before COVID. I wasn't like the COVID
okay.
converted.
Because that was my question is like, you know, there's either pre-COVID or after COVID,
Yeah.
right? Like now everybody wants to do the online space. And before it was like this gray area, really.
Yep.
What did that look like back then pre-COVID for you? How did you get into that space?
Now that I've dropped right in, I feel like I've done my fucking time.
Okay.
Like I meet people that are like, oh, I'm an online coach. I'm like, what did you do before that? Oh no, I've just always been online. And I'm like, motherfucker, what?
Yeah.
Like I did, well, it was technically 12 years, but like 12 years in the trenches doing like 40 to 50 sessions a week, building like rapport with clients and building trust and I guess gaining the respect of people to like that knew what I was talking about. And to then go to before COVID, it was just like, what I decided was like, my daughter was about to be born as well. So I was in the process of like, how do I scale back? So I started doing like 6 weeks online as challenges and I had a little bit of PT, had a little bit of online and I was able to kind of create the shuffle. And then it was until the point that I went online and then COVID hit. I remember running like online Zooms in my garage for clients, created like a $9.95 membership just so people could stay active. But I like to think that I was an online coach before COVID.
Before COVID.
Yeah.
What did that landscape like when you were, because I did that as well pre-COVID. I worked purely online. I was a blogger and, you know, did the whole content creation thing back then before everybody wants to do it now. Sold all of
AI
that.
does it.
Yeah, exactly. I sold all of that to come to Australia and did the whole like, you know, 9 to 5 thing, went into reverse basically, went to uni to, you know, become a physiotherapist and then was doing that. So, and I remember thinking back to that space, like back in 2016, 2017, when I
Mm.
started, it was a very different landscape back then. There wasn't, maybe there was TikTok, I don't know, but I wasn't on that.
No, same.
Yeah, but like just the working online, Instagram, blogging, it was a very different space. It was, I don't want to say, I feel like you had a little bit more community back then. Like it
Yeah.
was like you were saying, you could build your community, you could be that person back then. Whereas now it's just hard to differentiate between 20 other people, in the area. For you, how did you build that community back then? And how do you think it's shifted now, for example?
Hmm. I remember just having like a group page and I just kept pumping people into the group page. Like if they were a personal training client, into the group page. And I guess it was like ROI, like a return on investment. It was like I would just chuck in some free plans and some knowledge and nutrition. And I think I had roughly like almost 1,000 people in my group, like the Energize community group, something like that. But it has changed so much, right? Like there is about a bazillion personal trainers and online coaches, and they're living in Bali and they're doing all this, all this stuff, or AI is basically giving them everything they want. But it has changed a lot. And I say to like close mates now that are still in the game or online coaches, like it's just not the same anymore. And I don't, anyone that has got a great community, I honor you for that because it's hard to keep the communities together, right? Or you're like we said, like you've also got to put the groundwork in to nourish the community as well for them to continue coming back to you. Yeah. So in regards to what it looks like, I believe building a community is the key, as they say, but it has, for me, I guess, lost a little bit of traction because I just lost the passion, right? So I didn't really feed the community page as much as I used to. Yeah. And then it was also like, well, I'm not taking on clients. So that was a big one because everyone were like, can I book a session? And I'm like, yeah, I don't do that anymore. Yeah. And there was also a part of me, and this is off topic, but like there was a big part of me that always, where the identity death came in because it was like, I fucking love helping people in the gym. Like I could take anyone through a session who's like nervous about being in there or hadn't, built some skills, and there's all these other people that make them feel intimidated, and I can make them walk through a whole session and not even remember anything else but what they've learned. So that was like when people used to say, can you dual train me? I was like, oh, yep. Even though it was detrimental to my energy and perhaps my path and my journey, but I kept going back and forth for probably like 5 years, 6 years. Yeah.
What was your focus back then? So what was your interest and what was your area? Because I want to get into a little bit later, working on the mindset, breath work, all of that, because that's where things shifted, you mentioned in the beginning.
Yeah.
But back then when you were throughout that PT scene, what was your interest then and how did it kind of shift throughout the years of those 15 years, basically?
Yeah. Remember how I said it was like a 12-year click? Okay. I never had a market like back then. And I say back then, and now I've done so much. I've had business coaches and I've done everything you can think of. What's your niche? What's your niche? I didn't fucking have one. It was just like anyone who came through my door who wanted to learn, who wanted to like get better in the gym or feel better about themselves or build more muscle, all the thing. Everyone come through. That's why I was busy. I didn't niche anything. But I did 50 sessions a week. That turned like it was a 6-figure personal training business. And I loved it. But I didn't have the blinkers on for the market and the niche and marketing strategies and Facebook ads and all the Instagrams and all. I didn't have that. I was like pre that.
Yeah. That's a very interesting thing then, because I think like people now are trying to become niche. People are now trying to hit a bit of a market, because I think too, if you read books and you listen to podcasts, they're telling people now, oh, well, you need to be niche. You can't like focus on everything or be too broad, because how are you going to get people, or how are you going to get those clients? Whereas, back then it seems like it was kind of the opposite really, because, maybe like things just worked a little bit differently, of course,
Totally.
back then. Yeah.
I feel you have to be in your niche because so many people have got a niche, right? So there's always the glute person, and then there's the 6-week program person and the ab person and the better legs and, the high rocks now. And there's niches for everything. So that I don't feel like if you don't have a niche, that's probably why you're not onboarding clients per se. So the niche that I did have, I guess, as I did towards the end, is I created like the Team No Diets method, is like non-restrictive dieting. So I created an ebook and I built an 8-week challenge, which is like a 10 kilos in 8 weeks results proven system, all in an app, right? Because the coaches and the skills that I adopted over the years of every bodybuilding show that I did was like, here's your fish and asparagus, you're ready to chew your arm off, versus towards the end, I was still able to get ready for bodybuilding shows eating ice cream. So I wanted to be able to show clients and people in the real fucking world that you don't have to sacrifice your health, your nutrition, your libido, your hormones to look a certain aspect. And that ended up being my niche. I don't know whether it like niched itself, if that makes sense towards the end. But I know when someone had approached me and said, like, I'm struggling with X, Y, and Z, it was always sustainability. It was always too much sacrifice. This coach told me to eat this. This coach told me to eat like the egg whites, and it's just not sustainable over a long period of time. So I built something that is so ridiculously easy that people lose a shit ton of weight and they go, now I've lost the fear of carbs. I've lost the fear of food. And I went into the depths of the psychology behind the brain, and that's where the shift was.
Right. That's such an interesting concept because I think sustainability has come up many times, and sustainability is something that is talked about a lot, but not in the same sense because you have people that I was just watching the Biggest Loser documentary on Netflix
Oh, I
or
haven't watched
whatever.
that yet.
Yeah, and like I think a key takeaway from that is that sustainability. They all, yes, lost that weight, but I can't remember what the statistic was, but more than half of them, I think even more than like 80% had gained it all back within the year,
Yeah.
really, because who's going to be training? What were they doing? Like
3
five
hours, 5
sessions a
hours
day or whatever,
Yeah.
and like eating so little and all of that. Like that's not sustainable,
Yep.
really. All right, I want to talk to you about sunglasses made for runners by runners. That's why I wear Your Run sunglasses. Lightweight, zero bounce, and they stay locked in even when you are sweating through speed sessions, long runs, out in the sun, whatever it might be. They are stylish enough for daily wear, durable enough for race day, and just the perfect combo. Honestly, I love brands that get the sport, get the grind, and support the running community, not just the podium finishers. If you're serious about your run gear and want shades that perform as hard as you, go check out Your Run. Use my code Jordan10 to save some money and get yourself some stylish sunnies that actually perform and look good. Run smart, stay protected, look good doing it with Your Run sunnies. What was the biggest challenge when it comes to sustainability? What was the biggest challenge that people came to you with, do you think? So whether it be nutrition, whether it be training, what was something in, that wasn't sustainable that you really had to like nitpick and help people with?
I think it's the fear of food. It's the fear of food. It's like, oh, if I look at a Mars bar, I'll gain 10 kilos. No. And oh, if I eat the bread, no. It's the people put themselves in a sympathetic, stressed state, worried already about the meal that they're about to have. Let's just say, like, I build you a meal plan, and it's so restrictive, and I start to think, all of a sudden they got to go out for dinner. This is like keto. Pick that for an example. It's the most restrictive fucking diet on the planet. Works, great. What am I gonna have? What's on the menu? And everyone's eating bread. Everyone's having a bit of butter, or I'll have a scoop of butter, and I can't have my wine.
Yeah.
And then they're like, oh, well, you know what I'm saying? Like it sets people off straight away. Yeah. And we'll talk about nervous system a bit later, but that's a prime example of someone being already unconsciously stressed before they've even got to dinner, and the night's fucked. They haven't had a fun time with their friends. Yeah. Whereas how about you've educated yourself with like carbs, fats, and proteins, and I call it like the matrix. It's just numbers. And you manage to like, organize your week and make sure you've kind of allocated some calories or some food towards that meal. You're ready to have the best night. There's no stress there. And then you get to Monday morning and you weigh the same. Or I used to have a client. I've always had multiple clients go. I was like checking in. How was your week? Oh, I had the worst weekend. I'm like, oh yeah, let's dive in. Tell me what's happening. I had a donut. I'm like, yep. And she's like, I feel like it's ruined my weekend. I'm like, so a donut ruined your weekend. You're stressed. You're upset. You're in like this bad energy place. You know, low hertz. Your frequency's all jacked up because you had a donut. You're going to stress your way on to Monday. And it's like, that's what people are experiencing every day. And I hated seeing it. Or people, the other part of me is also like the performer part of me goes, when someone comes to me and they go, I've tried everything. I've tried everything. You haven't tried this. And they lose like 20 kilos and they're like, what the fuck? It's because it's easy. And people don't know what it's like to feel easy. Like they don't know what it's like to feel calm and to make easy decisions.
I think we think like if you want to lose weight, if you want to maybe build muscle, or if you want to do this or that, people think that it's going to burden them, you know, that they need to burden themselves, that they need to do X, Y, and Z, but it's not always like that. You know, like you were saying, there are the easy quote unquote ways, and I shouldn't even say quote unquote because it can be easy, really.
Yeah.
Like whatever goal is out there, like if you're making it so hard on yourself that you're stressing yourself, I think that is detrimental to your goal as well.
Yeah.
To the person listening right now, what do you want them to know about stress?
No.
That's a loaded
that's
question.
such a loaded question.
And I love it.
Oh man. It's funny, I've gone from I was a personal trainer for so long because I was in my stress. I was like, the part of me is a performer part, and he is, and we want to talk about parts later, but like he's the energizer man. That was the energized personal training, which gave you energy. And the energizer man used to be the guy in the gym that everyone could hear and see for like 100 hours a week. And then I was a chef. Intensity, intensity, intensity. And I've also been a concreter for a long time as well as a tradie, right? That job is either really chilling or 100 miles an hour. So I lived in my stress state for a really long time. It took me a long time to get very conscious, awake, and aware of like how I operate. And I always say these words: physically, mentally, spiritually, and emotionally, to realize like I'm actually running on adrenaline. I'm actually running on cortisol. I'm actually jacked right up, so far out of my window of tolerance that I'm so used to it. So when I finally found some stillness, that's when I was like, whoa, this is weird. But when I meet stressed people, they just think that it's normal. You know, that's what can happen over time. I might meet someone, but they go, but it feels normal to me. It's like, is it normal that you drink that much wine and you don't sleep and your skin's not good and you're always chronically bloated and you always feel fatigued? And then all of a sudden, like there's an autoimmune disease that just appeared. Where'd that come from? So it doesn't specify it's stress, but it's like a ripple effect that people are in this day and age now, why I'm doing the work that I'm doing, because I don't think people really realize like the effects that it has on our longevity.
When it comes to stress, because I think too, it's important for people or the person listening to realize that stress isn't necessarily just, you know, the work stress or isn't just the life stress or whatever. Like it can be the under eating, it can be the physical stress or physiological stress as well. And
Yeah.
I think sometimes the body doesn't know how to differentiate that kind of stuff. And when it comes to your goals, yeah, that can be detrimental. You know, maybe you're not hitting something. We were talking about this on another episode. Like, you know, you have the runner, me being a runner. This is why it's come up.
Yeah.
But like, you know, you have the runner and they might be like a bigger frame. They've been running for years, and you kind of think like, oh, well, why is that? They're running like all of these kilometers a week. And, you know, I don't want to say that like a runner looks a certain way, but they kind of do sometimes. And I think a lot of it too is because, well, maybe they're overtraining. That's, you know, putting so much stress on their body. They're under eating, not feeling enough. They're maybe training because on the weekends is their cheat days, and, you know, they're drinking wine, drinking like all of this kind of stuff, and then, shocking their body. And then on Monday, like under eating, like all of this kind of stuff can have an effect and just snowball out of effect really. When it comes to stress, how do people really tackle their stresses and figure out what they need to tackle?
Hmm. Everything always comes back to like a level of self care. Everything that I've worked with, and or the coaches that I've had, or the therapists that I've had, and incredible teachers. It's like I people and there's healthy stress, right? We've got healthy stress and we've got bad stress, but I think it's the level of self care that it can keep people in alignment with managing the stress. That's the big one, right? If I go into corporate companies and I run a workshop, it's just like they are in some sort of way like a high performer. They always have to be on to be able to provide the company structure to keep them killing it. How do we keep you in alignment with doing your running, but also not burning yourself out mentally and physically, right? So I always go back to like the 6 frequencies of self care. And these frequencies are things that, is physical, spiritual, mental. Are you doing your sauna? Are you getting your massage? Are you using your skincare? Are you nourishing your body? Are you having enough hydration? And can you like create stillness that you can then really feel it? Like, and I know it sounds like this is where it all sort of starts, like the energetic stuff, but it's just like, if I asked you, Jordan, like Sunday afternoon, it's 38 degrees, I'm like, you going for a run? You might, I'm just not feeling it, man. Cool. Probably don't run. And I've always been the get shit done guy.
Yeah.
I can, and there's a part of me that can access that whenever I need to. But there's also a place for, I think, having the compassion and the awareness piece that when the body needs to rest, there's like there's that piece that you can access. Be like, best I rest. Like I did a breathwork client the other day, and he even said after the breathwork session, he goes, normally I would be like hanging to go to the gym. And he goes, my body, I can just feel it. My body says, just rest, bro. And that's okay. It's okay to rest.
Yeah.
If we can't access that, and this is where the breath and stillness practices and other things, it's like, if you can't access that, you're always on. Jordan's always running.
Where is the difference though between, that self-care, the rest, taking care from yourself? But I think too, from what I hear sometimes is there's a lack of differentiation between that and then making an excuse.
Mm.
Where do you think the line is, or is there a line between the excuse and the self-care?
An excuse as to the reason why they're not implementing the self-care,
Exactly. Yeah.
that will always come back to a root cause. So it's a root cause of like belief or self-worth. So like Jackson Godding, I'm not going to take his quote, but he's a psychotherapist. Love him. And his thing is like, your level of self-care is a reflection of your self-worth. Big fucking statement, man.
Yeah.
Big statement. Your level of self-worth, this is all coming back to your self-care. And I meet people in this world that, come into a container and we go through like quite an in-depth questionnaire. And I just want to see how they're looking after themselves. And it used to be in my challenges, like the busy mum, right? What is mum doing for herself? 0. But then it's almost like, but I can't, right? My kids need all the things. Yeah, but if mum's operating at her best self and she's got more capacity, she's like healthier, got a better brain function, she's got more clearness and clarity, she's able to like serve the kids on a better level and have more energy to serve them. But every time it always comes back to like a root cause. There's always a belief, there's a conditioning part of them that almost, I've had clients come in for that exact reason. They will self-sabotage themselves because they don't think they're worthy of having the physique. So they won't go. There's a part that just is, there's like little subconscious mind, like, nah, why go? You're never going to look any different. And if that belief is just too strong and starts running the programs, they'll skip the gym a couple of days. That's just easy. See, you were gonna do it anyway.
Yeah. I think that's so important. Like the mindset is key, but also like something that you brought up back then is like if you can't take care of yourself, how are you going to take care of others? How are you going to take care of your goals? How are you going to take care of, just your day to day? Like, I think too, sometimes, again, if you can't put yourself through that self care, if you can't take care of yourself, then even life admin stuff gets sacrificed. Or, oh, I spent like the weekend or all Sunday on the sofa doing absolutely nothing. Like, that's fine if you need to do that. If your body needs to do that, great. But at the same time, I think if you're self sabotaging and, you're doing that because you know that you can't, like, do something else, or you don't want to do something else or whatever, then I think that's where things get a little bit gray as well.
Yeah.
When we talk about, let's say, those clients or those people that are in that mindset and are trying to find motivation, and I say that quote unquote motivation, what do you speak with clients about when it comes to motivation, and how do you educate them on motivation or finding motivation for something?
Mm. It's funny. I was literally writing a post before you got me before, and you hear that heaps, right? I hear that a lot, and I've even used it a lot because I was like, the hype guy, lots of intensity, go, go, go. But really, truly, like, motivation doesn't exist. And and I'm gonna like kind of pull this back, but when I got ready for my last bodybuilding show, um, I was not motivated for 20 weeks. I had a lot of life stuff going on, like not great life stuff, dark place. But I managed to execute the show and do what I needed to do because there was a habit foundation so big that if it hadn't taken 10 years to build that system, there's no way I would have finished. So I really don't believe in motivation anymore. I believe in, like, nervous system safety and habits. There probably could be a bit more of a pyramid bottom to that, I'm sure. But you know what I mean? Like, and when I have a client come into a container, it's just like, what are the self-care frequencies look like? What's sustainable? And pick 3. Let's just pick 3 things to work on. For example, let's implement more water. Let's give you a devotion practice, which a lot of the time now is breath, and like 1 gym session. I don't care where they fit in the week, but if you can manage those levels, by the time you've done a couple of months, it's so easy that the habit's been sort of like concreted in, that when you're not motivated, you kind of find yourself there. Like, I remember getting to the gym, I remember like locking my car and being like, oh, I'm at the gym. We're in a state of hypnosis all the time too, if you didn't know. Like, we're in a constant state of hypnosis. We are always hypnotizing ourselves through like a pattern, and the habit is the same.
I love that answer because I get asked frequently, or not even asked sometimes, I get told, "Oh, Jordan, you must be so motivated waking up at like 4 or 5
I
to
watched
get
this
your run
podcast.
done
Yeah.
or something," right? And I'm like, "Well, no, I hate it.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
who likes waking up that early or whatnot?" I just do, because even now, like, even when I was on holiday, like, I probably didn't naturally wake up at 5 a.m. I woke up maybe 5:30, 6 a.m. It's just a habit,
Yeah.
I go to bed the same time, I wake up the same time. And I think those are things that I've done for nearly 10 years myself as well. Like, it feels more awkward for me not to do it than to do it, really. So,
Yeah.
like you were saying, I probably don't ever believe in motivation as well, because yeah, I think like a part of me, if I have like, a half Ironman coming up, or, I want to do an Ironman or something, like, yeah, there is some motivation behind there, but I know that I'm never going to get to that goal by motivation alone,
Yeah.
because, there's only so many hours in the day. And am I going to want to train 4 times a day? Probably not, but it's going to be habits that bring you there. So
Yeah.
I appreciate that answer. What I want to go through now is, you were talking about, the path year 12, you kind of found this new shift, and things for you shifted with the mindset, with breath work. How did that kind of come to be? Can you dive a bit deeper into that, and tell us a little bit about the importance of that kind of stuff when it comes to our health and fitness?
Oh, I was thinking on the way here that this question was going to come up, because I was like, again, it was like personal training was disappeared so many years. And I think I've always been that type of person where I'm in my performer part. I want to acquire as much knowledge as I can all the time. So even when I was in the personal training industry, I was doing certificates on everything else that I could to try and get more skills, right? And I use that a lot, like your tool belt is just like skills, you know, especially at the end of the day when you're on your deathbed, like did some cool shit. But I'm not sure what the pinnacle moment was. I just know that I wanted to try some different stuff. And then I ended up getting like a coach or a guru. Let's say that's a guru. And I went to his breakthrough weekend. And I did stuff that I was totally outside my comfort zone for starters. And it was so different. And we ended up doing a meditation. We ended up doing some breath work. And we did some yoga. And I was like, what is this shit? This is weird. And a massive part of my nervous system was so uncomfortable. Like I almost left. Like I was like, I'm going. This is weird. You know, like from going to do like boxing and personal training and bodybuilding. It was weird. And a lot of men still are in that, by the way. Like if you're a dude listening and this comes up for you, it's going to feel real weird. Why people aren't in the breathwork field yet. And I don't know, it was just an invitation. And I was also like, life was in some challenging moments at that time too. But I continued to go back. And I went and did something else. And I went and did something else. And then I went to another, I think the first, I think I did it was part of a chakra healing. And it was with the chanting. And each chant has a different vibrational sound. And when we did this big chant all the way through, and now this guy has lived in an ashram and he's done the yoga. He's like super embodied with what he does. And he's a very close friend of mine still. And something clicked. It was weird. Like I was in this like vibrational, deep, vagal tone state where I was able to like see and have this beautiful moment connected to like source or spirit or whatever that is, right? And I was just like, what is this? Wow. And that's the moment where I've always kind of got one of those personalities where I'm in. Feels good, right? It's like that. That's motivation. Motivation is like this moment in time that kind of clicks the gears and like starts the engine. I'm like, whatever this is, I want to know. I want more of it, right? Hook it to my vein. And then not sure, it was kind of on and off between bits and pieces, but then again, it created some awareness pieces in like my clients to be like, oh, why can't you follow the meal plan? And then why are you feeling like you're feeling? And it was always just surface level personal training. We had some really great chats and intimate conversations with clients, and I love that. Like I could speak on podcasts for hours, but it was the surface, right? And that's when it was like, what's underneath? What's the root cause, like the unconscious mind? And the biggest quantum moment was when I studied to become a breathwork facilitator. And I was also still in that kind of dark place, best simple way of putting it. And that breathwork session absolutely cracked my soul open. Like I had no idea what I was holding in. Like I've always been like an emotional dude. Like I'd watch a movie, have a bit of a cry, that sort of level. I like to think I can balance my feminine and masculine quite well. But I cried my fucking eyes out. It blew me apart with what I was going through, plus what kind of came through. And I remember coming out of that moment in time, and it sounds intense, but it was massive. It was these moments that you create enough stillness in the body for your body to release what doesn't belong there was massive. And I came out thinking the world needs this. That much transformational healing happened in that hour and a half, and how good I felt and how energetic I felt, but in a different way. I've always like motivation, hype, and energizer man found a level of stillness, energy that I hadn't felt before. That's way different. Not the stress version. It was like parasympathetic power that I was just like, whoa. And then that was it. It was just breath.
That sounds like that's so fascinating and that's so interesting. But also, if the person listening right now is thinking like me, they're like, oh, that sounds a bit scary. Like I think too, like you brought up like, oh, that's weird. Like, yeah, it is, I guess, weird if you're in that fitness scene or whatever, and you've never done something like that. But I think for me, less than weird, I think it sounds a bit like, oh, why would I
Probably
want to
wasn't a
go?
great word, but yeah,
No,
yeah,
no,
you
but
know what I
like,
mean?
why would I want to go somewhere and like, potentially cry or like, like I think a
Mm,
lot of people are afraid to put themselves in that state or, might not be ready or might not, know that they needed to do something like that really. So to the person listening right now, what do you want them to know about breath work, about like, putting yourself in that situation and how do they, I guess, need to figure out if they're ready, like is everybody just ready to go into something like that or do you need to be in a state of mind really?
Good question. And this is something that I was hoping would come up because people need to know that breath work isn't what you see on the social media. I went through a specific intentional breakthrough session, right? And I'd also done a lot of work before that and built, I'm going to use this word a lot now, but like I've built capacity to be able to handle that. Like you've built resilience and capacity. Like I couldn't run fucking 22Ks tomorrow. So if we zoom out of what actually breath work is, it's a remote control to control your nervous system. And we've got multiple facets of how that can be done. So if I said to you, Jordan, right now, like, let's just see if we can relax you a little bit and just get you to ease and down regulate because you're feeling a little bit tense. Yeah. It might only take 4 minutes. And that'd be it. And you'd be like, whoa, I feel heaps better. Yeah. But that was a session specific for releasing energy. But then I might meet someone that suffers from asthma, they might suffer from anxiety, overwhelm, and that means they've got low CO2. This is why I studied the science of the breath, right? Because there's all well and good, there's all these things going on, but when you actually understand the science specifically of the breath, people that have a low carbon dioxide tolerance have a higher chance of having anxiety and gut issues, right? So I'm going to give them a specific breath work exercise, what we call a breath flow, to improve those symptoms and build your capacity for that skill. So you've got breath work to retrain the way we breathe, because if I took you through breath work for performance, so if you're a performance runner and you're not doing breath work, brother, sister, start doing breath work. I take on people for like 6 weeks and retrain their breath, and all of a sudden they're running faster times with heart rates lower, HRVs higher, blood pressure's lower, because we're training the way they rebreathe. So you can see if you zoom out, breath work is so much more powerful than just these big moments in time.
I think we all I think in the back of our minds know the importance of the breath, right? And I think too, like when it comes to maybe meditation or whatever it might be, breath work is sprinkled into all of that. But I think too, like for the person listening, looking at it, like you were saying that, there are different aspects of it and maybe potentially figuring out what you wanted to start first and then it can evolve from there is a good kind of way to look at it because like I was saying is if I were to think of breath work and were to think of like the story that you like your example of you doing the work but then the example of crying and going through all of this kind of emotion and whatnot, I'd be like, oh, maybe I'm not ready for that yet. But I think like it's important for the listener to know that like there are other aspects of it too and it
Yeah.
can help you. You brought up like the nervous system a bunch of times and I think that's such an important concept because it's involved in everything really. But for the listener right now that isn't exactly aware of what the nervous system is involved in, how breath work helps with that, maybe give the listener, sorry, a little bit of a cliff notes on first maybe what the nervous system is and how we're working on it with what you're doing.
Nervous system is a very complex system, right? But as soon as you are born, your nervous system is like online. And we're living in a state of either fight, flight, or freeze. Or our parasympathetic nervous system is our rest, our digest, our calm, our clear, our decision making. And the sympathetic nervous system is our stress and our chaos. So if the breath is the remote control to these systems, this is where I guess you say people kind of I don't agree. I don't think people are aware of their breath at all. I really don't think so. Because when I meet people and I say, take a breath, they go, I'm like, well, no, take a breath, right? So, I mean, the nervous system is like, we're building and downloading codes since we're like straight out of the womb, man. Like it's wild. You know, this is where we start adopting environments, and without going really deep into like the nitty gritty, it's like if we're adopting an environment that's not predictable as a child, and we start downloading, you know, these parts in time and memories and codes that are like causing us trauma, we're going to be a very anxious attachment style human being that feels dysregulated all the time and possibly has a chance of having a source of addiction to escape the feeling of the pain that they had when they were a child, all because the nervous system has been flicked to freeze from the beginning. So the nervous system is a quantum part of how we're operating.
That's a great, like, I think a great education point there, because again, like maybe the listener right now has heard of the nervous system, maybe they haven't right now, but like it's always on, you know, like it's something that
We're like this all day.
exactly,
Yeah.
like it's one of those things. The human body is a fascinating thing. It does so much, and we know so little, I think, a lot of the time about it. But when it comes to, I guess, the person, and you know, maybe they are ready to make a change, maybe they are ready to, you know, start with breath work, start on their mindset, start on their nervous system. um I think, like, what does that person need to do when it comes to, I guess, making the first step? Because
Yeah.
I think, like, being ready is the first step. Like, you know, a person's not even going to be listening to this podcast unless they're ready, or they're not even going to be,
True.
you know, reaching out to you unless they're ready, or whatever, or even looking on an Instagram or whatever, unless they're ready, right? Or unless they have the inkling. But, you know, if they are at that stage where they're ready to make a change, for maybe it's anxiety, or maybe it's binge eating, or whatever it might be, um, what is the step that you would tell that listener?
Hmm. That's a broad one.
Yeah.
Hmm. I feel mm, I I feel more people need to start with creating some stillness.
Okay. I feel like we're all go, go, go these days. And even right now, like with me answering right away, like people think that they're so busy all the time
Yeah.
to create stillness.
That was me for a long time. I was very, very busy. And I've done lots of sessions with a therapist. One of my mates specifically, and I'm going somewhere with this too, but like with a mate, he was just like, all right, we're going to do an experiment. And I was like, keen, let's go. What are we doing? And he was like, he just sat there, like just so calm, collected, and still. I could hear his breath. And just chilled. And I was just like, the fuck's going on? It's like, I ended up just bursting into tears because people are uncomfortable with their own stillness. So the first step is just like being okay with creating some stillness, that they can allow themselves to slow down. And what do they feel is a state of urgency? What do they feel is a state that's activated or alive? To be like, it could be just like, you've got this beautiful intuition in our body. Yes, you could hire a coach like myself, and I would know what to do and remap everything like, because I know. But it's just like, I don't know, this might be like a very broad one, but it's just like, what is something right now that is not feeling aligned with you? It's the alcohol is causing me to feel blah, blah, blah. Can you reduce that? I just don't feel great in my energy. What am I putting in my mouth? Maybe I don't want to join the gym, but maybe I'll just do some more steps. You know, like, I don't know if that makes sense. I just feel like we have like this massive demand of urgency, and we have to work it all out. And as soon as we go too far, we bypass this beautiful mechanism to be like, what? what do I want to work on first, and can I take it from a slow, sustainable approach? And sometimes that's the best way. Because I know, for example, if my fiance is listening, anything too fast for her, it's all over. It's all over. If I write her a training plan, try and get her to the gym, try and get her to go to Pilates and get all this, just nope, not happening. Too much. Bombarding her nervous system with what she can manage. So if the average listener or someone who's either a high performer right now, how many more things can I fit in my day? You need to try and find stillness. And the person who wants to start their journey is just like, just connect for a minute. Because I meet so many people that just can't sit still because I was that person.
I think too, like one of the questions that I get asked all the time is, you moved to Adelaide 6 years ago. Why Adelaide? I come from a part of the world, Vancouver, where it's very go go go. It's very fast paced. Coming to Adelaide was kind of like a smack in the face to me because that's something that I appreciated, was the stillness, was the
Right.
pace of the
Okay.
city compared to a city like Vancouver, so massive, so busy. People are miserable in Vancouver. Like,
True.
I
Yeah,
was
right.
miserable when I was in Vancouver. And I
Okay.
think like what you're saying was, I think back to that. That's probably why I was so miserable, is because I was so on 24/7 in hour and a half of traffic, high, like fast paced job, and then like no downtime, no stillness, like just a busy city, chaos all the time. That when I came to a place like Adelaide, again, to be honest, the first like week I was like, I don't think I'm gonna last here. Like, this is different. And
Wow, there you go.
like you were saying, I think like we get uncomfortable in the stillness sometimes. We get uncomfortable in being steady. And I think for whatever reason, some people think that they need to have 20 things going on and they're lazy, quote unquote, if they don't really. And I think that's what I felt back then. I do think Adelaide is shift. I think unfortunately it's getting to the scene. Anytime I go to Sydney or Melbourne, for example, it's like being right back home. It's so
Yeah.
crazy. People are always on go, go, go. And I do feel like Adelaide people here are moving in that direction, fortunately. Um, but I do agree that, like, I think we're not used to that stillness and it's hard for people to maybe get out of that state. I also think for whatever reason, we're all we all think we're super busy these
Mm.
days, or we have 20 things going on in our life. Or I think one thing that I get told all the time is, I'm too busy for this, or I'm too busy for that.
Yeah.
I'm too busy to do my shoulder exercises, or I'm too busy for this. When you hear that, I'm too busy, what does that what do you think, where does that come from, and how do people get out of that state? I'm too busy for change, or I'm too busy for my breathing, or I'm too busy for this.
Yeah. Priorities and intentions, right? It's super simple. Like at one point in my life, my priority and my intention and my goals was towards bodybuilding 5, 6 days a week. Everything else got parked. And then all of a sudden, now that I finally won that show, which was took me 10 years to win that show. Now my intentions and my priorities different. I prioritize sleep over watching TV. I prioritize my gut over like shitty meals. It's like because I'm so in tuned with where I guess the energy output's going now. But yeah, I just don't think people are prioritizing things in the right position often enough until it burns them, perhaps. You know what I mean? Like until they kind of go, they miss. I got a friend, for example, where it's like, and a lot of people who I meet who are like, I've worked with some millionaires, I've worked with high performers. They're that definition. I work, and that's my priority. But then their self care is no good. Their relationship with their partner is no good. The relationship with their kids is no good. And I'll make it up on the weekend, but then they're too busy on the weekend because they got to try and do the lawns or They're trying to do some extra bits and pieces. So I think it gets too far away from people, and then they burn out, which is when they meet me, and we look at like where's your intentions lie. And I does that make sense? It's almost like they don't really realize. It's like the whole until you have a heart attack, then they go, oh, I gotta drop 20 kegs, man. I'm not feeling good. Or like to your cholesterol's like 9, you know?
That's a story so common though, unfortunately, isn't it? Like I think a lot of us a lot of the time take health for granted until something comes up, really. And, whether it be like, I've spoken about this on the podcast too, like 2023, I was in the hospital and this was just a random, like, it could be because of stress or whatever, but, I had a cyst compressing on like a couple of arteries and
Oh,
nerves,
wow.
and my leg was dying, like organs and things like that was an emergency surgery. And, um, things like that, like, again, you don't really, not that I've ever took my health for granted, but, like, I think sometimes something happens and it puts things in perspective, and it's an unfortunate thing that I
Yep.
think it has to get to that stage for a lot of people
Yep.
because like you were saying, like, you know, if somebody has a heart attack and it takes them, to get to that stage, we don't really want it that. We want to be more on that preventative side of things, but I
Mm,
think for a lot of people we're not in that because priorities have, have shifted to something else really.
yep. And that's the I did a meditation with a client the other day, and I've been saying that to a couple of mates on some calls, right? If you zoom up as high as you can and you think that you're floating above the planet, who is going to care that you laid some pipes in the ground? Kids aren't. Not if you're not hanging out with them and doing cool stuff with them. Or what is your impact on the planet? What is your impact and what is the legacy that you're leaving behind? Because those moments of stillness show you very fucking quickly what your intentions are and where your priorities are going or where they're not going. But we're too busy in the chaos that you mentioned that there's no time to work that out until you've lost the partner, until you've had the breakup, until you've fallen into burnout or perhaps shot your nervous system upside down that you've got an autoimmune disease or your gut's always upside down. We're so busy in the chaos, there's no time to see perspective. And that's where, I'm running an event in March. I'm gonna fucking plug that. But there's no spaces where people can create community and stillness that they can zoom out and look down on their life with some clarity to be like, that's what's missing. Every time I've done an event and I've like either ran one or been a part of one, the exercises and the process work that you do, you don't miss those little you see the little boxes inside a box, inside of a box, inside of a box that you can't see because there's too much chaos. And you're like, fuck. Because if I got my high performers listening to this too, and anyone that like is still on the edge about breathwork also has that capacity to alter the states of consciousness that you can't access in the 3D world. You and me could start working on the next podcast and trying to build all the plans and write all the pieces of papers down, and there's something that's still not going to click. There's always going to be the part of your prefrontal cortex is going to be doing all the driving, all the thinking, think, until you just go, fuck this, right? We go do some breath. There'll be this beautiful euphoric place where you'll be able to access a piece of information or data or flow or thought that you cannot get whilst we're conscious.
All right, team. Quick shout out to today's sponsor because they've genuinely been a game changer for me personally, and that is U Foods. So here's the thing, no matter what your goals are, fat loss, muscle building, training for something big, or honestly just trying to survive a busy week, U Foods has meals that actually taste amazing. And I'm not talking about those sad frozen meals that taste like fake ingredients and disappoint you every single time. These meals taste fresh, they taste real, and they don't feel like you're on a meal plan at all. I literally look forward to them. But the real reason that I'm obsessed personally is time. My time is everything, and saving literally 3 to 5 hours a week from grocery shopping, cooking, cleaning the kitchen, that honestly is priceless to me. Those hours go back into my training, they go back into this podcast, into the other podcasts that I produce, and just my sanity as well. So, if you've been thinking about giving pre made meals a go, or you just want to make your life so much easier, use my link in the show notes and you'll get a free box of meals to try out. Seriously, try it. If you're anything like me, you'll wonder why you didn't start sooner. For the person listening that knows that they want change, that knows that what they're doing is too much, that they need to, slow down, that they need to make change, but is too afraid to maybe step back, is too afraid or has the fear of starting, of making change, what would you want to tell that person?
What does your life look like if you don't fucking make the change?
Mm, that's important, isn't it?
Write it down, man. What does it look like specifically if I don't start taking action? I was just writing a post about that too. What does it look like? Write it all down. Same shitty relationship, same shitty job, same leaky environments, same friends that cause me to go self-sabotage, same stuff that doesn't serve me, doing, things that we don't like. You're going to have a long list. And you're going to look at your, you zoom out and be like, well, we've got two roads, man. Would you rather be a little bit scared and make some wicked changes, or you're just going to deal with the long list? Unfortunately, some people just take the shitty list. That's okay too. You'll find your way. But write it down and ask yourself, what does it look like if I continue to follow the path that I'm on?
I think one thing that is difficult too is sometimes we can get comfortable in certain situations. I think sometimes we can be unhappy, want to make change, but what we're doing is comfortable. And like you were saying, is if you even make that list, but everything that you've put on that list is comfort, and then you compare a list to something that's discomfort, I think that can be scary for people as
100%.
well.
Yep.
But I do think that sometimes you do have to get through. We're talking about near the beginning of the podcast that sometimes we don't want to go through discomfort, or we don't want to for that situation, but I think for a situation when you want to make change, I think sometimes there needs to be some discomfort. um what would you say to somebody who is in that comfortable state, again, wants to make change, um but again doesn't really know if they need to go through that discomfort?
You've almost got to play both sides, right? You don't have to take the massive leap and quit your job. And I know this is always been a big one for myself. Is we talked about you've got this career and you've got this career. And I've always lived on sword's edge. When I was leaving the personal training industry to go online, it was terrifying, but I had to play both sides to allow adaptation. It's almost like, where is your adaptation phase? It probably should goes in lots of context of the other parts that you just said there. But if you're using specifically that changing the job or starting the gym or whatever it is, it's what can you do to start nourishing that just to start with, and play both sides to be I know when I was in the personal training industry, it was just creating so much fatigue. And what did it look like if I continued to? I'd lose time with my family and my daughter. And the other side was the freedom that came with the online world, but it was a little bit unknown to the income side of things because I was going to get more clients. I wasn't in the gym. But for me, time with my daughter outweighed the energy and the fatigue. So I think that what come through is allowing to kind of what does both look like until I create enough adaptation. And I guess the other part of that is you create evidence. The nervous system, the unconscious mind wants evidence that what you are doing kind of works. The same thing with let's go back to the Team No Diets thing. If I start coaching someone unconsciously and consciously that eating carbohydrates every day with every meal, and then they do a check-in and they've lost 3 kilos, they're like, what? Evidence. Oh, it works. So maybe create enough evidence and allow yourself to get through that adaptation phase without the full shock. Some people have the capacity to be able to like just go, quitting smoking, bam. I'm gonna start running. I know heaps of people that do like just, oh, dude, I ran like a marathon. I'm like, man, awesome, right? But not everyone has that capacity. Can you start slow? Can you nourish? Can you create a little bit of adaptation? And can you create evidence that what you're doing is working? And perhaps if you do create the stillness, what feels right, intuition wise?
I like that answer. One of the things that I I've been told a lot of the times, and I think like this question, a lot of people have come on and given different answers, right?
Yeah,
And
for
that's why I
sure.
love it, because I think we all have different perspectives. And one thing that I disagree with, and I respect people who have given me this answer, but like I disagree with the whole, oh well, you need to go all in and just make the leap of faith or the jump. Like I think that sometimes for some people can be a bit naive, because we do have responsibilities sometimes, like,
Yeah.
whether you have a family or whether you have a mortgage or whether you have, like, I think if you are taking that transition stage, if you are working both sides, I think it can be a little bit more. And I think like responsible sometimes in the whole business field comes across as bad, because sometimes people are like, no, you need to go all in, you need to make risks and this and that. But I do think that is a little bit naive a lot of the
Mm.
time as well, because I think it can be scary. Again, if somebody listening right now is wanting to make change, I've gone through it again, like, working as a physio, doing this podcast and whatnot. Like I could have just quit, my physio practice, but like at the same time, there's responsibilities,
Yeah.
and you do need to be smart and strategic about it as well. And I
Yeah.
think too, like that helps you make change, right? Like
Mm.
I think like you can still, I know for me, like it actually has made me like and love physio a little bit more, because I've stepped away from it. I'm dabbling in
So true.
something different,
Yep.
and I can now really appreciate the whole physio instead of just doing one thing. I think now that I'm doing a few things, it's making me appreciate things a little bit more. So yeah, I like that answer, because I think too, like, again, yes, some people have the capacity to go all in, and
Yep.
great. Like that's amazing. I think you need to do that if you have that capacity, and like if that works for you. But I think too, like not everybody is in that boat,
No.
unfortunately.
And I think it's like if you relate it to like, starting the gym as well or starting your journey, it's like where I've said to people in my programs as well. It's just like you've got to find out what works, right? So and I for so many years I was like weight training is the only way, which I still truly believe is the key to longevity. However, if you want to do Zumba and you get 2 sessions a week of Zumba and it brings you a lot of fulfillment and joy and like you feel so happy, you'll probably have phenomenal results in the rest of your life because you're coming from your heart space. Everything feels great. Everything feels aligned. But if you're doing something that you don't like, you'll notice, right? Say 3 days a week of weight training. Oh, I didn't really like that. Or boxing. People love kickboxing. They do it like 5 times a week. Fills their cup. Cracker. So like if you're slowly transitioning into that, and I'm a big one for business. I love like business ideas. I could chat that for ages. The same thing. Like if you can't always, unless you got a lot of backup and a lot of equity to like just hammer one out and just take the other road. Can you do both? Like what's your ikigai? What's your reason for being, right? Can you do both? And I know, for example, myself, if I've gone and done like my old job or I've had an online coach and then I know what one I gets me G'd up more than the other, right? And then I can smooth it over as it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What part of the path are you in now?
Mission, soul's mission. It's fine. It's a bit of a heavy word. Just soul's mission, the soul's purpose is to like fully embody the soul's mission for me at the moment is to be in alignment with my journey and to help more people guide them back to safety in their nervous system because of that chaos world that everyone was living in and the chaos I was living in is just like one of those like moments where it's just like the way the world's heading is very scary. So I want to create more nervous system safety to people so they can build more capacity to show up in a world of chaos. That's what's happening. We're losing capacity because again, we're losing our self-care, we're losing our breath, we're losing our ability to show up for ourselves. Our habits are non-sustainable. Our nutrition's no good because it's full of shit. And I don't eat, vegan or paleo or anything. Like I still eat quite flexible. And this is why I've created like an event like Life Force. Life Force runs through our veins. Like the way we breathe and the energy that we cultivate is in spaces with people. People where we can be in a portal of people having a regulated nervous system with no phone, with having a laugh, with regulating your breath, with getting very clear, with zooming out on the world and creating some stillness and understanding of like, what do I fucking deserve? What won't I tolerate anymore? What aligns with my habits, behaviors, and my thoughts? What leaky energy am I letting in? When you get really clear on that and you've regulated your nervous system, you don't need motivation anymore because you're fully aligned and embodied with how you feel in yourself. And then you 10x that with a group of people that are on the same level as you. You don't need drugs, man. That's a life force energy that everyone can tap into. And then when they've built the skills to do so, all of a sudden, taking action is going to be so much easier. If you're taking action from a regulated place and the system is calm, we're in a state of coherence, you've got the evidence, you've got the confidence, you're clear in what you deserve and what you want. You're coming from your heart space. You're not coming from fear. You're not coming from a place of need or want. All of a sudden, like you're just, bam, I know exactly what I deserve. Let's go.
And where can people maybe drop the event that's coming in March? Where can people find you and chat with you as well?
Cool. So just at Luke Koek, and
Okay.
it's Koek, pronounced Cook, but spelt real weird.
Yeah.
Dutch heritage, so that's
Okay.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, Instagram and just Luke Koek Facebook. But
Okay.
March 1st, we're going to be 9 till 5 event on a Sunday at the Adelaide Zoo.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
Okay.
real cool. Big event. It's going to be cool.
Yeah. Awesome. And that'll be in the show note for you listening. So you can definitely check all of that there. Thank you for coming on. I think this was very insightful. I think the listener right now, like, I want you to end off just giving them maybe a key takeaway you want the listener to know.
When you create the time, I just invite you to connect to the breath and see how it feels in the body.
Amazing. Love that. Thank you, Luke, for coming on.
Thanks for having me, man. Fun.
That's all right.
Awesome.
Yes.